So a lot of people don't like homeowner associations. Most people don't. These people are out here riding around, looking at your yard, seeing if you're cutting it a certain way, see if a certain tree is alive or dead, or, etc. So there have been people that have lost their homes due to the homeowner association. Some people get in long court battles with them. A lot of people just don't like them. But the homeowner association wasn't created to make the neighborhood look good. It was created to keep black people out. Let's go ahead and roll that clip.
So increasingly, entire neighborhoods would come together and enter into private contracts saying that they would never ever sell their houses to black people. That way, all the neighbors who signed on to the contract then had the right to sue if any other neighbor turned around and sold their home to a black person. And they would create the contracts to run with the land, as they say in the biz, meaning that it was binding to the property and to subsequent owners of the property, meaning these racially restrictive agreements were then taken on by subsequent buyers of the same property. This is also the reason why homeowners associations were created, to restrict blacks from entire subdivisions. So there's a fun fact to bring up at your racist Great Aunts barbecue next week. And this practice was pervasive in virtually every major city and suburb in the United States for the first half of the 20th century. And these restrictive covenants were upheld again and again by courts across the country as perfectly constitutional because they were private agreements between private parties, not state action against a certain race. And despite the fact that it was acknowledged that government-sanctioned and enforced housing restrictions would be unconstitutional, the government continued to restrict access to housing for black Americans, especially via the FHA. The Federal Housing Administration was created in 1934 in response to the Great Depression to allow the U.S. government to help fund the purchase of housing, thus creating desperately needed construction jobs and helping people who had been flattened by the Depression get back on their feet and purchase property. The way the FHA worked is by using government funds to ensure private bank mortgages that covered 80% of purchase prices and had terms of 20 years. Because the FHA is the one insuring the mortgage on the house, the FHA then insisted on doing its own appraisal of the property to make sure that the loan had a low risk of default. That's what insurers do. They see whether the risk is high or low, and they prefer to insure lower risk things because then they get to keep their money. And what was in the handbooks and manuals for all FHA insurance appraisal agents? A whites-only restriction. Basically, the FHA, as well as other mortgage insurers, had determined that black homebuyers were too risky.
So you know now that the homeowner association was created to keep black Americans out. It was a particular contract that they had with each other, basically being on code with each other, like you don't sell your property to no black people. See, this, when I told y'all before, the economic sabotage of the black man and woman of America has been our story. These other groups that just coming across the border or could just landing in America, they don't have a documented history of people sabotaging them. Listen, if nobody sabotaged you, yeah, in 5 years, you can get a nice home, you can get an education, you can get whatever and do very well for yourself. And no one is actively sabotaging you. That's anybody. Black Americans haven't had a time where we're not sabotaged. Sabotage has been the law of the land for the black man and woman of America. And that's why a lot of people don't want to fool the homeowner association on a good day. I know some people that say refuse to move anywhere they got them. They say, oh, no, I'm not moving around them people. I'm not going to deal with them. And you have every right to say that and not go somewhere where there's a homeowner association. But this is the history that a lot of them don't like told. They don't like history being told to say, wait a minute, that HOA was meant to harm black people. Just like the police force. It was meant to control black people. It wasn't meant to be doing what they're doing today, but some of the same function, right? Slave patrol morphs into the police. So every institution they create, a lot of it, I'm gonna say the majority of them, is meant to harm black people.
So increasingly, entire neighborhoods would come together and enter into private contracts saying that they would never ever sell their houses to black people. That way, all the neighbors who signed on to the contract then had the right to sue if any other neighbor turned around and sold their home to a black person. And they would create the contracts to run with the land, as they say in the biz, meaning that it was binding to the property and to subsequent owners of the property, meaning these racially restrictive agreements were then taken on by subsequent buyers of the same property.
But that's why, for me, like I said, I like the African continent because you don't have to deal with those issues and problems. And let me say something about that, since I mentioned that. I'm going to tell you from now on, going forward, if you come to the comment section, at least if I see it, and you go on this, I don't care about no Africa, I ain't going over there, if you're anti-Africa on a channel that says African Diaspora News Channel, biggest day, I'm gonna block you. I'm letting you know. I don't like your negativity that you have. To me, your attitude is anti-black, just like these white supremacists that created the HOA to keep us out. You just as anti-black too, as they are. Like I said on one podcast before, is that the white supremacist is your bastardized mama and daddy. That's why you act the way they act. You're just as anti-black as they are. You rather wrap yourself and fight dealing with a white supremacist all day, but it's a problem if someone talks about the African continent, really, where the world comes from, where definitely I come from, you come from, we all come from that, period. But so if you're anti-Africa here and you come in, I don't care about no Africa, I don't care about this, I don't care, keep it to yourself. If you feel that way, keep it to yourself. But if you put it in my comment section from now on, you're blocked. I'm not gonna argue with you because I don't like your negativity. Because maybe somebody else is interested. Maybe somebody else would like to go see it for themselves. Maybe somebody else would like to say, I like to go open up a shop, do some business with the brothers and sisters overseas. You know what I'm saying? I want that kind of connection because I have that kind of connection in the African continent. I have people I work with daily over there. And I just don't like the anti-Africa sentiment in my comment section. Just even the mere mention of it. You want to deal with the white supremacists to the day you die, go ahead, have at it. I hope it works out well for you. But other people, sometimes they don't want to deal with these white supremacists. When I went to that, and I showed y'all this on this channel, when I went to that, Blue Valley subdivision out there in Midran, out there in Johannesburg, you don't have those issues and problems. You got the money, you can go do what you want to do. Get your place to stay. People look like you around now. See, that's what I'm on. I'm a solution-based person. I'm not going to be crying all day long. I'm saying, that's what I need to do? Okay, I'm going to go do that. But these HOAs and those anti-black, reasons why it was created, and look at it today. There's been many stories of black people, even today, talking about the HOA and how they treated them because they didn't want them in the neighborhood. These institutions that start off as anti-black racists, they need to be called out, for one, and black people need to be on their behind about it. So yes, homeowner associations were created to keep black people out, not to make sure the neighborhood stays good. No, it was meant to keep black people out. It's a racist institution, just like the police is. But let me know what y'all think about, this, situation here about the homeowner association. Maybe some of you knew this. Maybe some of you did not know this, but now that you're armed with the knowledge that HOAs were created to keep black people out, now it's time to go and destroy the institution of HOAs. Because yes, it's an institution of racism.